Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, is my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am okay, Charles. How are you?
I am good. I am very good. Now, are you ready for the B movie to this science fiction double feature?
The B movie? Like Jerry Seinfeld, the B movie? Or
yes,
like a B movie, like the letter B?
Like both. If you remember properly, there are lots of letter B's in the B movie. I know, because I have the entire script of the B movie tattooed onto my chest. I can't read it because it's on my chest, but
a lot.
It was a good choice. It was a good decision that I made, and I don't regret it every day.
Yep.
All right, well.
No regrets.
I actually refer to this as a B movie because in a double feature, back in the day when they did those, they don't really do them anymore, there was the A movie and the B movie. And the A movie was the first one that you saw, and then the B movie was the second one, and typically of slightly lower quality, which is how we get the terminology of calling something a B movie today. And I believe Captain Weird and the Journey into Oblivion is kind of it's a B movie of a TV show. It's got kind of a B movie aesthetic and a B movie feel, you know? It's a bit camp, it's a bit silly, it's a bit weird, and it stars your favorite character that we've ever created in tandem together, Captain Weird, space hero of tomorrow. If you remember, he was the main character of episode 57, I think? I believe that was the episode
57?
number.
57? I thought it was later than that, but maybe
Let me
right.
Let me check. I'm checking. Because I didn't listen to the whole episode last week, but I did listen to part of it to kind of get a handle on what we established about the character after I decided that I was doing the show on him. And so I got a few more things. I had forgotten some things about Captain Weird, like his superpower and his archenemy, and so on and so forth. And so I got those things. Where is it? Because I'm at 60 and it's not there.
Oh.
What?
Is it higher up?
It is higher up, I think. Is it? It might not be. It might be lower.
This is great content for the podcast.
This is fantastic content.
What episode was that episode?
91. It was 91. Captain Weird, Space Hero of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
if you're interested,
I remember it was close to 100.
Yeah, if you like this episode, maybe you'll enjoy the first episode we did starring Captain Weird, even though they're pretty much totally opposite in terms of tone and execution, because Captain Weird, Space Hero of Tomorrow is kind of a relaxed buddy comedy between retired space hero Captain Weird and his podcasting assistant, and also intern, I believe his name is Kyle. And this is an actual space adventure. It's actually Captain Weird doing his space adventures that he talks about in his podcast that he has in that show. So let's start out.
So this is a prequel.
This is a prequel in a certain sense, but it's also a sequel in another sense. We'll talk about that later. Henry Weird finds himself lost, alone in the icy vacuum of space. His ship running low on fuel, supplies, and beer. His crew dead or abandoned. His hopeless quest. His only comfort being the half-mechanical Muncanic he picked up in the mantis shrimp quadrant. So the Muncanic is one of our star characters. He is, like I said, a mechanical half-monkey mechanic. Muncanic.
Oh.
Yeah. All seems lost until a crack of lightning strikes his ship. The booster cells reinvigorate, explode, and propel Captain Weird towards the nearest habitable system. Quanto, the Muncanic, steers the ship as Weird wakes up from his drunken stupor. So basically, he was sitting in the captain's chair, drinking himself to death because he thinks he's gonna die. And then all of a sudden, as he passes out, strike of lightning brings his ship back to life, and he fires off to the nearest spaceship. Or not nearest spaceship, dummy. Nearest habitable world. So the ship lands itself onto a small trading village, and as Henry stumbles out of the hangar and falls face first into the mud, he greets the locals with an exuberant bluster, exclaiming that he is the great space hero, Henry Weird, and he will now accept their tribute. So, you've got kind of
Hell yeah.
the picture so far. This drunken moron falls face first into the mud, gets up, dusts himself off a little bit, even though he's still covered in mud, and, asks for tribute, for money and gold and women, and money, more money, and alcohol, and even more money. And after a pregnant pause, Weird is knocked out and wakes up strapped into a pillory, wearing a donkey mask. Now, if you don't know what a pillory is, I had to Google it, because I couldn't remember what it was called, but a pillory is like that thing that claps over your head and under your head, and it's got your arms, and it's basically what the medieval people used as a humiliation device, right? They'd strap you into the pillory in the center of town, and they throw like rotten fruit at your face and stuff. You know what I'm talking about, right, Jake?
Yeah.
It's fun.
I do. I was in there last week.
Yeah, of course. Next to me. It was fun. We had a grand old time. So he is, obviously he's wearing like a donkey mask, and it's not like a Halloween mask, right? It's one of those like old school, gross, grubby metal medieval masks that they would make people wear, right? And you completely can't see his face. You just see like his eyes poking through the donkey holes, right? Next to him on one side is a man in a gorilla mask, and on the other is a man in an octopus mask, right? And so these are our three main characters for this episode. If you couldn't tell, it was the pilot. We're starting off right in the middle of the action, basically, because that's what you do back in the day, back in the 1950s space adventure things. You don't give a big long preamble. Nobody's telling you about their past. You just fall off of a spaceship and then get stuck into a pillory by these demented locals who are gonna kill you. As the man in the gorilla mask explains, they're going to murder you and sacrifice you to their ancient deity that demands, tribute in the form of outsiders who come onto this world unannounced. So that's where we are. We've got Henry Weird strapped into a pillory. He doesn't know how he's gonna get out of this one, and he's basically stuck there for 3 days and 3 nights, right? As he and the the gorilla and the octopus discuss their plans. They're gonna try and figure out what to do. And they, at first they're just all kind of like in this together. They're gonna be very happy. And then they're, kind of getting a little more sick of each other, getting a little bit more angry at one another because they're all stuck together and they're all uncomfortable, and they've all had to shit their pants because they're all standing up for 3 days straight. And they're, the octopus begins to he gets to complain about the gorilla and how he stinks, right? He's not complaining about the donkey, even though the donkey is in between them, because, Henry's the newest guy, so he smells the least. But the gorilla, he's been there for weeks, and he reeks. He really does stink. And so the octopus is explaining, and the gorilla explains that he's annoyed by how the octopus snores, He snores too loud, and he's talking in his sleep constantly about all sorts of weird shit, And they're bickering, and they get angry at each other, and finally Henry just yells at them. He screams at them both, and he exclaims that they need to work together, that they're never going to escape this horrible fate if they don't work together. And he promises them a place on his ship, both of them, a place on his ship if they escape. And so now with this newfound, they know what they'll do. They have an idea of what they'll do if they escape. They start to come up with a plan. They formulate a plan. Henry begins to sing a song, and the gorilla joins in. He sings this beautiful ballad, and I'm assuming we'll pick a funny song. Name a funny song for him to sing. Name one.
Go. The Sesame Street
the
theme
Sesame
song.
Street theme song. So he'll begin singing the Sesame Street theme song, and he'll get all of the villagers to like form a kind of a semicircle around him as they listen to him sing this beautiful ballad, because, you know, obviously these guys are like a medieval level of technology. They don't really have cool music like the Sesame Street theme song. And using this distraction, the octopus will wriggle out of his restraints using the copious amounts of bird shit that's been dropped on him over the 3 days that they've been sitting there. For some reason, Henry Weird, the donkey, and the gorilla have not been shit on at all throughout this entire thing, but the octopus has been shit on constantly, and no one knows why. The octopus doesn't know why. The villagers don't even know why. They talk about it. They're like, this is so weird that he's just covered in bird shit all the time. We wash him, and he's still covered in bird shit. And Henry decides to use this to their advantage. So the octopus wriggles free, you know, and he begins to run towards Henry's ship. And Henry's told him the entrance code so that he'll be able to get in, you know? And so the octopus runs, and he's running, and he thinks he's gonna make it. Looks like he's about to make it into the ship, make it home free, and then he'll use the ship's onboard computer and guns to kill all these villagers and help his new friends escape. And just as we think that he's going to make it, he gets an arrow shot into the back of his head, and he falls over, dead as a doornail, completely and utterly useless. And it's very sad. It's like a real, oh no. Not so much that they're sad that this guy's dead, because the gorilla and Henry don't really care.
Yeah.
But, that was kind of their best shot at escape, and now they're most assuredly going to die. And so, it's at this moment that we remember that there is someone else who can help them. One mechanic, who has spent the last 3 days on the ship just savoring the silence. Because Henry treats him like he's an idiot, but the mechanic is pretty smart. He's smart enough to fix up a ship. So he spent the last 3 days inside of the ship, fixing up the innards, and just enjoying the silent bliss of not having to listen to Henry Weird burp and fart and call him an idiot and like get drunk and vomit all over himself. He just silent. But he's realized he's heard nothing from him for 3 days. And so he looks out and he sees that Henry Weird is trapped in this pillory. And so he decides, well, I gotta help him. I can't just leave him to die there, you know. And this is all done with his face, obviously. He doesn't know how to talk. Yet. Ooh. So at the third night, right? They're meant to be sacrificed in the morning of the fourth day, and on the third night, the mechanic finally sees them, and he sneaks out, and he begins to like crawl through, and he like dodges the look of the locals, and he unhooks Henry's binds, and Henry's finally free. He stands up, he cracks his back, he throws his mask to the ground. He's like, finally, God, let's get out of here. And so the mechanic begins to unlatch the gorilla, right? Because he's like, well, I gotta save this guy too. And Henry is like, yeah. And he looks up, and his eyes caught, because behind him, he didn't see this when he first landed, but behind him, there's this giant, beautiful jewel that's attached to this death ray that they were very obviously going to use to kill all 3 of them and sacrifice them to their god. And so Henry decides, a split-second decision, well, I can either hire this complete nobody that I don't give a shit about, or, and then we see him, you know, in his mind, he's like, no, I'm gonna do it. And he gets the mechanic to climb on his shoulders and snatch the jewel, and they both run up into the ship, leaving the gorilla attached to the pillory. And he's like, hey, sorry, buddy, but, you know, them's the rules, space rules. Ha 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 ha. And he's very happy. And he gets onto the ship and he flies away. And then, you know, he's staring at the Oblivion well he's staring at the crystal, and he's very happy. And he's taking a shower. Obviously, the mechanic is examining the jewel, and he shines a light on it. Not on purpose, it's just like looking around, you know, examining it with all of his mechanic tools. And he shines a light on it, and it explodes in this beautiful, intricate map. This map that, like, spreads across the entire ship. Imagine, like, a sort of Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indy hits the scepter with just the right amount of sunlight, and it, like, points to something. Imagine that, but instead of it pointing, it explodes.
Yeah.
This huge map of the entire galaxy. It's in this crazy alien language. And, you know, Henry Weird, he walks out of the shower. He's, you know, got his towel wrapped around his waist, and he's got, like, old man slippers on. And he's like, whoa, that's crazy. He looks up, he sees the thing, and he can't read any of the map, but he sees and he notices something. That's the symbol of the Oblivion Well. I remember that I was told this story as a child. It's this temporal rift that exists somewhere out in space, and it's meant to, if you find it, if you discover it, somehow manage to find this ancient place, you'll be imbued with inhuman abilities. You'll be greater than a god. And so that's our end of our episode. We find Henry Weird. He's got his journey. He knows where he's going. He's going to the Oblivion Well. He's gonna get his superpowers. He's gonna be the greatest space hero who ever lived. Now, without the jewel, credits roll, and then we get a post-credit scene. This civilization, the society that he spent the day on, right, the 3 days on, right, in the pillory, now that their jewel has been stolen, and 2 of their 3 sacrifices have either died or escaped, they really have nothing to give their god right now, so they have to wait a little bit, and they decide, well, we can either keep this guy around, or we can just let him go. And so they let the gorilla go. And the gorilla, you know, he's very happy. He's so happy, but then his happiness is very much overcome by his rage, his lust for vengeance. And he takes off his mask, revealing him to be Dr. Destructinator, the arch nemesis from the original episode, as he swears vengeance on space hero Captain Henry Weird. Right? So,
nice.
That's the end of the first episode. We've got our main goal, the Oblivion Well. We've got the kind of person that Henry Weird is, you know, a real prick.
Yeah.
If you couldn't tell. We've got the Monkanic, our very marketable character. Where there are going to be so many plushies of the Monkanic, it's going to be crazy. It's great. I'm very excited about it. And so I've got a few episodes after that are just kind of not filler episodes, but they're just not super pointed towards the eventual goal of the Oblivion Well. And then we've got our, like, true, the season arc, starting at episode 4. All right? So episode 2 is Henry. He's, like, finds this map, and he decides, you know, obviously he's found the map, but it's in a language he's unable to read. So the first piece of business is to find some way to read this language. And so he knows of this great and powerful wizard who lives on the farthest reaches of the galaxy. And so he and the Monkanic travel to this wizard's domain. Give the wizard a name right now. Go.
Bartholomew.
Bartholomew.
Bart for short.
Okay, Bart for short. Bartholomew. He's got a mule face and a man's body, because he's a mule, and that's the kind of universe we live in. And he goes to Bartholomew and he says, please, you know, translate this map for me, and I'll do whatever you need me to. I'm a great space hero. If you didn't know, I've got, you know, tons of adventures, saved all sorts of alien worlds, and, you know, banged all sorts of alien princesses and stuff. I'm pretty cool like that. And Bartholomew's not really impressed with Henry Weird because he's A, never heard of him before, and B, he's just some guy who showed up on his doorstep asking for a favor. And so Bartholomew decides to give him a task, a seemingly impossible task, right? To find, kill, and skin the great space whale of the lava seas, right? So this is kind of a Moby Dick style episode where the Monkanic and Henry Weird, they go to the lava seas of planet Blurgthorpe 9, There we go. That's the name of the planet.
Nice.
I don't like naming planets.
That's it.
If you couldn't tell. I think it's kind of lame. But
no.
We've got the Bergthorpe 9 is the planet, and he's going across the lava seas trying to find this great whale that's killed everything else that lives in these seas, right? It's the apex predator. The only other things that live here are the microscopic beings that the whale is able to subsist on after millennia of evolution, right? And so he's searching for this whale, and he eventually finds it, and he, and this is just, again, this is kind of just a fun episode where we get more of the character, more of the mechanic kind of being more competent than Henry, but Henry gets way more into things. He, maybe we can do a thing where he gets poked in the eye and loses a leg. And again, this is a sci-fi universe, so he can have his leg replaced. But I would really like him to have a peg leg and an eye patch by the end of the episode as he's spearing this whale, right? And he's able to, figure out a way to get the whale, and maybe, he's got Jaws style. He, gets these lava retardant, air-filled containers that, stay buoyant when the whale goes underwater, and he's able to, hit it with enough spears, and then he reins it. He gets a reins on it, Know what I'm talking about? Like horse reins. But it's on a whale.
Okay. Alright.
And he, and obviously the wizard didn't think that he would be able to successfully get the whale, but he rides the whale all the way from Blarpthorpe 9 right onto the wizard's doorstep. He crashes through the wizard's front door. Not just the front door, he demolishes the entire place. Think of the wizard's house as kind of like a lighthouse, in a sense. It's this very tall tower, and he crashes the whale right through the tower, destroying everything, but the wizard's his workshop at the very top of the tower remains intact, because the whale basically does one of those magician's tricks where it flies through and it, keeps everything on top of it exactly where it was, but it knocks everything away, And then,
okay, gotcha.
Obviously the wizard is completely incensed that his home has been destroyed, but he's impressed by Henry's determination, and so he gives him a translator module, something that he can plug into his ship's computer that will translate the map for him within a few days, right?
Oh.
And that's how it ends, right? That's how the episode ends, with the wizard hollowing out the innards of the whale to create a new home out of this whale's guts. And I think that'd be cool if you have a whale house with a tower just on the top, and that's where all your wizard stuff goes. And then this episode 3, is the most sitcom-y episode of the bunch, because this is really just we're in the setup of the thing. And so the mechanic is searching through the bowels of the ship, right? He's looking for things to fix, pieces, parts that need replacing, and he's able to find an experimental voice box, and he attaches it to his own genetics, or his own, biology. He's able to, work it into his own, mechanical, half organic body, and he gives himself a voice, right? And I think that we cast, a well-known comedian for this. I don't know who yet, maybe Jerry Seinfeld, since we were talking about him earlier, but who do you think?
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld? What do you mean?
What kind of... What do you feel like this character is?
I was thinking, because this character, the mechanic, is he's cool and collected regularly, but when there's stress happening, he gets very anxious about things. When there's a space battle going on around them, or there's any sort of excitement or adventure, he's but normally he's just whatever, man.
We got Kramer to play him.
We're gonna bring Kramer back from Career Suicideville?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Who's cool? We could have Terry Crews.
Terry Crews would be good. I was thinking maybe
Is he got to be
to-
funny? You were going with Jerry Seinfeld, so a comedian. Is that what you want? You want a
I was
comedian?
thinking a comedian, but I think it could be anyone with like a noticeably recognizable voice, right? You know? Like not a voice actor, but somebody would be like, okay, this is maybe, you know what? Conan O'Brien.
Yep, it's Conan.
We're casting Conan O'Brien as the Muncanic. And so the Muncanic is, he gets a voice and he's finally able to like yell at Henry Weird and give him like his what for, and Captain Weird's like, oh, you think I'm so bad? Let's see you do it any better. You be captain and I'll be the first mate, and I'll do what you tell me, and we'll see if this gets any better. And at first, it's not as easy to be the captain as the Muncanic thinks. Like, he thinks it's very easy and a very simple job, and Captain Weird is like just this incompetent idiot, which he is. But the Muncanic's also not the brightest bulb. Like, he's good at fixing ships, but he's not good at like negotiating with trading authorities and stuff like that, you know? So it's like Captain Weird feels a little bit like vindicated, but then, and he's also happy to not have to give orders. Like, he's very happy that he doesn't have to worry about who does what, or, you know, how we're gonna get places, because he just does what he's told, and he hasn't done that for a while, so he's like, okay, this is fun. But then, eventually, because the Muncanic is smarter than him, he is, eventually, he becomes a better and better captain. So much so that Captain Weird's like, I don't want, you know what, this is dumb. We're done with this experiment. I want my job back. You're the Muncanic, I'm the captain now. Again, we're going back, and the Muncanic's like, no. We're not gonna do that. And so there's like kind of a mutiny. But because there's only the two of them, it's kind of a really lame mutiny, and it becomes more of just like when roommates are mad at each other. So they like draw down like everything down the middle. This is very sitcom-y. They put like tape down the middle of the ship, and like everything in the kitchen is put down the middle, and you know, it's like, oh, actually, I bought that spaghetti, so you can't have any. It's like, actually, I gave you 60 cents for the spaghetti, so I can have 60 cents worth. And it's, you know, it's very granule and stuff. And they're just like very, very angry at each other all the time. And then eventually the ship finally finishes decoding the map. It's finished, you know, and it could tell you exactly where the Oblivion well is. And they, you know, both are just so excited, because it's like the Oblivion well, everybody's heard about it. It's the bomb diggity. It's gonna give you all super cool powers, right? And so they look at it and they see that the Oblivion well is supposedly right in the middle of where there is currently a intergalactic war going on between two of the largest militaries in space, and the Muncanic and Captain Weird decide that they need to work together. If they want this to happen, they need to work as a team, as a unit. And they had their best successes when they were, you know, Captain Weird and the Muncanic, not the other way around. So the Muncanic decides to go back to being the Muncanic if he gets a little bit more respect. Captain Weird's like, yeah, but you also need to admit that being captain's not the easiest job in the world. And so they both, you know, agree. And so they decide to venture into the depths of this intergalactic war to claim this great treasure, right? And so that's the end of episode 3. Episode 4, we're starting in medias res again. Captain Weird's ship is being chased by a what do you call it? What do you call it? Fucking Jesus Christ. When what's a spaceship that's a fighter? I don't know.
A fighter?
Yeah, like a fighter ship. But I was thinking like a destroyer. Yeah, like a galactic destroyer controlled by the Grey Goo militia, right? That's one of the militaries that they're fighting. And the Grey Goo militia is basically... Do you know about the Grey Goo scenario? Do you know what that is?
Nope.
Okay,
No idea what
well,
you're talking about.
I'll explain it for you and for our beautiful, lovely listeners that I definitely didn't call pigs in a previous episode. The Grey Goo scenario is basically a science fiction situation in which you create micro bots, like, you know, microscopic microscopic machines that are self-replicating, and they can take in any matter and make more of themselves out of that matter. And basically, you'd have this gray goo that would infinitely replicate itself and take over the entire planet, right? So that's kind of the gray goo scenario in a nutshell. And so the gray goo militia is a planet got gray goo. The scientists on the planet were able to create these nanobots that just basically ate the entire planet. And then they tried to spread to other planets, but the gray goo kind of figured out that, you know, like if you eat the ground, it's really easy to take over an entire planet, but if there's no ground, it's pretty difficult to get from place to place, right? So they initially tried to just like craft spaceships and then fly those spaceships right in and then suicide bomb gray goo onto various planets. And it worked for a little bit, but now they're at a standstill with this army, the Legion Libertas, which I will get to. And the Legion Libertas has managed to repel their suicide attacks, you know, repel their kamikaze planes, and so they've had to take over people, you know? So basically these, you know, human husks that have been, like, taken over by the gray goo. And so just think of, like, a normal guy, but the inside of his mouth, the inside of his nose, and his, like, eyes are all this shiny metallic gray color, you know? That was kind of the idea I was going for, right? So everything on the outside looks normal, but everything that's even a centimeter inside of him is just gray goo. That's, you know, controlling these people like meat puppets, right? And that's the gray goo militia. And they are, you know, currently chasing down the disrespectful loon. I forgot to mention the disrespectful loon is the name of Henry Weird's ship that he's flying around.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good name.
I thought so.
Very nice.
I thought it was fun. And so the gray goo militia, you know, is chasing him through, and they're, you know, evasive maneuvers, getting to, you know, battle stations, all that stuff, and we're having a fun grand old time space combat beginning of the episode. Think the first few minutes of Revenge of the Sith, right? There's all sorts of not aliens, there's all sorts of like spaceships and robots, and they're blasting them out of the way, and the disrespectful loons got all sorts of machine guns and lasers and missiles and stuff, but eventually the gray goo militia is able to overtake them, just turn off all of the disrespectful loons like weapons and such, and board. And the Mechanic and Captain Weird are captured, right? Because they need to be interrogated before they can be incorporated into the gray goo militia. And so, they're just all, you know, they're stuck in a room. Imagine, you know, bright lights in their face. It's basically pretty much the exact same as an interrogation in now times. You know, they're just in a room, stuck in a room, hands tied behind their backs, in chairs, explaining what they are and what they know. And the gray goo militia, you know, doesn't believe them at first. They think they're spies or whatever. But Henry Weird is able to explain, like, hey, if we were spies, why would we, you know, not have any sort of information about the Legion Libertas on us at all? Like, why would we be attacking you? Why would we fly face first into one of your patrols? We're not spies. And the gray goo militia is able to, like, be like, okay, you're right, you're not spies. Alright, now let's kill them and, you know, take over their bodies, and then we can have the ship and we'll have 2 more recruits. And Henry Weird's like, oh, no. No, we could help you. Oh, you can help us? How could you help us? You're a bunch of filthy organs, you know? Totally organic. You're not incorporates. That's the name of people who've been, you know, turned into members of the gray goo militia. You're not incorporates. You're
Okay.
Yeah. Am I talking too much? I mean, I know that this is the episode, but if you've got something to say,
That's the
just say.
It's our job.
Yeah.
Sir. Our volunteer work.
This is our volunteer work. I'm gonna put this on my CV as
Volunteer work.
Yeah.
Help out the kids.
Yeah, so they've decided Henry Weird's able to convince them that obviously you can tell if somebody's a member of your army. You've got all the gray eyes and face and shit. It's very handsome. You look very good, but it's very noticeable. But if you get us, we don't look like you guys at all. We can infiltrate. We could talk to these guys. We could be your eyes and ears. If you're, do you know what eyes and ears do those work for you, or is it just, we could work for you. And so, he's able to convince them that they would make better assets than Incorpors. And so their first job is to infiltrate the Legion Libertas camp and acquire the battle plans for the next grand battle that they'll be having in a few days, right? End of episode 5. End of episode 4. Episode 5? Ooh. And so the Monkanic and Henry Weird have been, acquired by the Grey Goo, and they have been, they know what their job is. They know what they're supposed to do. They have to infiltrate this camp and, do all sorts of fun stuff and steal these battle plans from these dudes. The Legion Libertas. Now, the Legion Libertas is made up almost entirely of human men, right? Maybe there's a few alien creatures sprinkled in there, or some cyborgs or whatever, but it's mostly just human men because it is an army built in pretty much direct, remembrance of the Roman military. So they're basically space Romans, right? And so they've got all the armors and the helmets and the flags and everything. They all on the ground, they all sleep in the tents, right? Think this is very much a Roman, they're basically fucking cosplayers for the Roman Empire, But they've got laser guns and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they utilize Roman battle tactics, right? And all this stuff. And so this episode 5, is think of the episode when the Mandalorian infiltrates that Imperial camp, right? That Imperial factory with Bill Burr from the first season.
Yep.
Think of that.
They go on the train and they go in and they eat lunch in the cafeteria.
Exactly. They go in, they land their ship on a side of the planet that they're not on. Then they take speeder bikes and they go into the camp, and it's all very much the first scene of Gladiator with all the it's snowy and everybody's got all these coats on and these big tents and stuff, but they're laser guns and holographic battle plans and maps and stuff everywhere. So it's space legionaries, and they knock out 2 dudes, and they steal their costumes. Sorry, I know you're a big Roman fan, but they steal their uniforms, and they infiltrate the Legion camp, and they're going through, and they're able to find the tent of the general, and they there's a bluffing scene. They almost get caught out where the general's where are you soldiers meant to be? Blah 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 blah. All the fun stuff, right? And then they're you're a little short to be a legionary to the Monkanic because he's a monkey,
Yeah, because
also Star Wars
references.
Star Wars. Star Wars. And so it's oh yes sir, he's my son. I just took him to work because the wife is she's out of town, but I love the little guy, and he picks him up. It's a very awkward scene because Conan O'Brien and Henry Weird have to pretend that they're father and son, and Henry Weird has to give him a little kiss on the mouth because that's Legion
proper custom.
Yeah, that's Legion that's Tom Brady tradition, and Legion tradition is that you kiss your son on the mouth. And so they, he picks him up, he's yeah, son, let's go. He puts him on his shoulder, and they, walk off. He's I love the young legionaries. Here you are, son. Have a good day. And he pulls out a lollipop, and he's this is red wine flavored lollipops. And he's yes, legionaries. We love red wine. because they did, I assume. Did the Romans love red wine?
They had wine.
But did they love it, or is it just like, eh? You know?
Well, I mean, it's one of the few things you could drink, so probably like.
So they had they'll have red wine lollipops because that's funny. And so it's a successful mission though, and they're able to finally steal the plans. They get caught as they're escaping, but Henry is able to use his brains and the legionaries, kind of dumb, silly equipment to his advantage, and so he sets a fire on one of the tents, and it jumps from one tent to another until the entire camp is in, horrible flames. And it's like, yeah, if you had a building, if you just had like a metal building or brick or whatever, this wouldn't be a problem. You have fucking tents, you idiots, And they escape and they make it onto the ship, and it's like, oh, this is smooth sailing. So this is all good news, right? That's the end of episode 5.
Yeah.
Episode 6. Ooh, they're returned with to the Grey Goo militia with the battle plans in hand. And the Grey Goo militia, it's kept its side of the bargain. It will let them go. It will let them pass through the blockade and go onto the planet that has the Oblivion well, right? They haven't asked why they're going to the planet, because if they had, they would probably want the Oblivion well as well. But, I've said well a lot in that sentence, but it doesn't matter.
Well. They may want the well.
Mm-hmm.
Well.
But they are unhappy with the battle. No, they're not unhappy. They're very happy with the battle plans, and they let them go. And they're like, all right. And Henry Weird and the Mechanic think, well, that was pretty easy. I mean, as far as sneaking into a military base and escaping the military base, setting everything on fire, and espionage and stuff, that was pretty easy. And they're, very happy about it.
Yep.
And just as they, pass into the blockade, pass through the blockade right next to Legion Libertas space, an unencrypted message is sent out, right? And it's obviously meant to be a message that's sent between Grey Goo militia people, right? It's sent by the Grey Goo militia to Henry Weird, saying, you guys need to transport those battle plans with the utmost secrecy, right? But they didn't encrypt the message. And so the Legion Libertas gets this message, because they're obviously monitoring all of the, stations, and they immediately intercept the disrespectful loon, right? Because they think it's got all sorts of battle plans, and the Grey Goo militia just made a mistake, because they obviously don't know how computers work, or that the fact that these guys are robots. And so Henry and the Mechanic, they're captured, and they're like, no, we didn't work. Well, I mean, we did work for we set your camp on fire, but we're sorry, it was for the thing. We don't have any battle plans, obviously, we don't. And they're tortured, and they're beaten for hours, maybe days, and they're like, where are the battle plans? You have to tell us the battle plans. And they're Roman soldier types, so they've got all sorts of weird Roman torture tools, but all sci-fi'd up, weird, corkscrew they put in your dick hole, or whatever they did in Roman times, or whatever. I don't know. What'd they do in Roman times? What'd they put in your dick hole in Roman times? Jake, you read that book one time. You tell me.
I don't remember anything related to that in any book I've ever read.
You don't need to lie. It's okay, Jake. You know what? I'm not gonna press you any further.
I'm sure you read about it a lot, so how about you explain?
Red wine lollipops. We already talked about this. So they're forced to give up the battle plans, and finally Henry relents, and he's like, okay, fine, the battle plans are this, that, and the other thing, He just lies to him, because he doesn't know. But he's like, that's the only way we can get this torture to stop, right? And they're like, okay, fine, we'll hold off on the torture until these are proven correct. And if they're wrong, oh, buddy, you're gonna get it. We're gonna put so many things in your dick hole you don't even know, bro. You don't even know. And so that's what's happening. They're stuck on the space station, on a spaceship that is sent into battle with the Grey Goo militia. But they were obviously, very ill-prepared because the Grey Goo Militia sent in Henry and the Munkanic as a red herring, and they attack the Legion from behind. You know, they teleport ships in, they attack from all sides, and they completely destroy the Legion Militia, right? That, like, there's almost nothing left of the Legion Libertas, right? But in all of the chaos, as the ships are blowing up and there's another epic space battle outside, Henry and the Munkanic are able to escape. They're able to get down to the disrespectful loon. They have like a cool sword fight with a Legion guy. Maybe we have one dude we've been teasing the entire time that they've been stuck on the ship. He's like this huge guy. He's got like a double-sided hammer because that's impractical enough for a dumb space show, right? And he's like, I'm gonna get you guys. I don't like Munkanics and I don't like captains, so you better watch out.
Yeah. Hates all captains.
And so they have a cool fight with him where Henry's using like a space blaster that he has in the show, right? In the first show, he's got like the space blaster on the wall. He finally, like, we show where he gets it. He steals it from a Legion captain. He blows his face off with it. And then, you know, the Munkanic's using a wrench and he's prying at the guy's armor plating, and Henry finally puts a blaster bolt right between his eyes. And it's very, you know, climactic as the guy falls down. And, you know, he's fucking huge. He's like 600 pounds of pure muscle because it's space and you could be tall. And he falls down. This big waft of dust, like, kicks up behind him. And then Henry and the Munkanic are finally able to get to the ship. And they blast off from the wreckage of this, you know, legionary transport ship just as it explodes. As the final, you know, Grey Goo Militia vessel, you know, launches a volley of missiles into it. And they're finally, you know, they're getting to the planet. They're finally gonna make it. And their ship, you know, is hit by a rogue blaster bolt. And, you know, landing gears, right, malfunction, and they crash land onto the ship, right? Very exciting. They're very unhappy.
Yeah.
And that was episode 6. So, end of episode 6. Episode 7, they, you know, wake up, they're in this destroyed ship. They don't have anywhere to go, they don't know what to do, they don't know where they are. And so they begin to kind of Robinson Crusoe it together. You know, they're like getting all their supplies together. They don't know when they're gonna get off planet. They know that there's this enormous war happening above them. As, you know, the Legion Libertas sends reinforcements and the Grey Goo Militia, like, holds their position, right? But they are no longer involved with that at all, so they just look up occasionally, and you'll see these, like, enormous battleships just firing volleys of, like, blasters into each other. And they're Robinson Crusoeing it, but we see in the shadows of the forest, there are these, like, beings watching them, like, slowly but surely, you know, keeping an eye on them. Until one night, as the Munkanic, like, wakes Henry up, and he's like, you're on guard duty. Henry's like, oh, fine, yeah, whatever. And the Munkanic goes to sleep, and almost predictably, Henry drifts off to sleep next to the fire, and they wake up, and they're tied to, like, a stick being carried over. You know how it is, like, arms and legs tied up, and they're hanging from a stick, and they're being carried by these weird locals, and you can't really get a good look at them, right? But they've all got, like, big spears, and they keep getting poked and, like, hitting the ground because these guys are kind of short, and so their backs keep scraping the ground, or at least Henry's does, because he's obviously bigger than them. And they're brought before the Lord and God of these people. And it's revealed that these people, they're amphibinoids. Basically giant, like, frogmen. Just imagine giant frogmen in Aztec uniforms, like Aztec costumes and clothing and stuff. That's them, and they're controlled by their vile and cruel god, a god who protects them from the war above, the war of lights above their very heads, but at the cost of their ugliest women and their worst food, because the amphibinoids are frog people, and so their ugliest women look like regular women, and their worst food is like steaks and salads and stuff, because they like eating bugs and stuff. So it's, you know, it's not too bad. a gig for this vile god. Who might this vile god be, you ask? Do you have any guesses?
It's Captain.
No, it's Dr. Destructinator, of course.
Of course.
See, Dr. Destructinator was on the original planet from the pilot episode looking for the map to the Oblivion Well. And after Henry Weird went to the wizard, who took a copy of the map that Henry showed him, he was able to track his way from Henry's location to his eventual location, right? And so he managed to make it while Henry and the Moncanic were doing all of this adventure stuff with, like, splitting the ship in half and then getting captured by the Grey Goo Militia, then getting captured by the Legion, right? Dr. Destructinator crash-landed onto the ship winged by a Legion Libertas, ballista bolt, right? And so he was able to find these people, and he didn't have a complete map yet because, obviously the wizard didn't manage to get a whole map, transferred. He only got the broad strokes. He didn't get every individual detail, right? And so he was able to find these people, and then he's been sending search parties out to find where the Oblivion Well may be, but none have returned successful. And the ones, only 1 in every 3 of the parties has returned at all, And so Dr. Destructinator, and that's the end of the episode, is the reveal that Dr. Destructinator is this vile and cruel god that the amphibinoids worship, right? There's lots of gods in this universe, and most of them aren't gods. Most of them are just, guys with weird hats on. Nice. It's fun. And so Dr. D, that's what I call him, decides that he's going to kill Henry and the Moncanic. But Henry is able to, again, as his great strength, is able to talk his way out of it and says, well, obviously, we've come this far to find the Oblivion Well. You've come this far to find the Oblivion Well. We can work together, with all of our skills combined, we'll be able to find it, And Dr. Destructinator reluctantly agrees, but he's like, I'll keep a close eye on you, Henry, because I know what kind of a 2-bit lying scumbag you can be. Obviously. Oh man, this is a long episode. Because I've got my final episode. So, that's they decide that they'll keep an eye on him. And so they journey through the forest, battling against the mind-controlled locals that Dr. Destructinator was sending out, the adventuring parties he was sending out. They were being taken over, controlled by the forest, right? Because of these, vile spores that were released into the air. And, basically mind-controlled these amphibinoids to defend anyone who got even remotely close to the Oblivion Well. Then they also fight the monstrous flora and fauna of this strange alien world. Plants with teeth, animals with roots, all sorts of crazy, weird alien stuff, right? Until they stumble upon this ancient temple, right? So think of a Mexican pyramid style, but it's filled with traps and crazy things, things to keep people out, because the Oblivion Well is one of the most well-guarded treasures in all of the galaxy. They journey forth through the temple. There's lots of close calls as they dodge traps and arrows fly past their faces. Maybe they go in with 4 or 5 amphibinoids in their party, and when they make it down finally to where the Oblivion Well is, there's only one with them, right? And so on the Oblivion Well, there sits this transcription, right? And the transcription is in the same alien language as the map was. And so they don't know what it says, and they don't have the ship module anymore to figure out what it says. But the Moncanic is able to, by cross-referencing the map with the translation with what's on the thing, he's able to figure out that the inscription says, "One must fall for all to rise," right? And so all of them are kind of looking at each other. What does that mean? Because they're looking over this well, this endless black void that's encircled by these stones that say, "One must fall for all to rise." And Henry and the Mechanic are kind of like, well, this is a little weird because it's like that doesn't go anywhere. You know, it's just black. And without a second thought, Dr. Destructinator, pushes the final tribal amphibinoid into the blackness of the well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the bad guy, so he has to obviously do bad guy things. And as the, amphibinoid turns to dust within the well, because it looks like it's just a hole that goes on forever, but in reality it's sort of like this invisible aromatic acid that like just sits in the well and it eats away at your flesh and bones until you're nothing. And as the final like bits and pieces of the amphibinoid disappear, this beautiful like purplish light shoots out of the Oblivion well. And they're all imbued with these powers, right? So, if you remember, in the first episode, in Captain Weird's Space Hero of Tomorrow, it's mentioned that he has one superpower, and that is X-ray vision. And so that's how he gets that. He gets X-ray vision.
Oh.
The Mechanic grows wings. And so, these powers, they're not exactly insane. Like, the Mechanic grows wings, but they're not big enough for him to actually fly, because he's made of metal. So they just kind of like, they look cool. And he's got X-ray vision, but it doesn't work on metal. So he can see through anything that's not metal. So it's pretty fucking useless. And then Dr. Destructinator's powers is that he can control and speak to machines. It's basically Magneto, but for machines. And so all but Dr. D are severely disappointed in their powers. But the activation of the Oblivion Well means that the temple begins to crumble, begins to fall apart, right? And so they all begin to escape, and, they dodging through traps, crocodile monsters fall from the ceiling and begin to attack them, Henry Weird shoots them off with this cool space gun, the Mechanic, jumps through the opening first, and then Henry jumps through, and then as, Dr. D is about to escape, the ceiling crumbles on top of him. And seemingly, it's definitely killed him, right? Of course, because it falls and destroys on top of him, and Dr. D is trapped within the temple. So he's either dead, or he's trapped within the temple forever, because he will surely die, right? And so Henry and Mechanic walk back to their ship. They're able to make it there. They explain to the amphibinoids what happened, that the temple is destroyed and no more creatures will come in the night to kill them, and the war in the sky will not affect them because the Grey Goo militias eventually will win because the Legion Libertas is a bunch of cosplayers, right? And they just kind of like nod. They don't really know what's going on, but they decide to let them go because whatever, it's fine. We're just the amphibinoids.
Yeah.
You took our god away. We have to mourn that. We're not gonna get mad at you. And so they decide, Henry and the Mechanic decide that they are going to go and they're going to use their powers for good, right? What little power they have, they're going to use for good, and they're going to fight the evils of the galaxy and be the great Captain Weird and the space hero of tomorrow. And the Mechanic, right? And so the ship flies off and like does like a twinkle. Like imagine, when Team Rocket like flies off at the end of in the middle of every Pokemon episode and there's a little twinkle in the sky. Imagine that. Like the ship flies off and that's what happened. Then we go back to the temple. And the ruins begin to crumble. They begin to creak. And then all of a sudden they explode outwards. Because if you remember, Dr. D is able to control and manipulate machines. Doesn't necessarily have to be metal to be a machine. And so he's able to manipulate all of the contraptions and traps within the temple to push them away from him. And he escapes, and he realizes that Henry Weird left him to die again, and he curses Henry Weird and swears revenge on him yet again. That's the end of the show. And he's shaking his fist up as Henry Weird and Mechanic, they cheers their beers as they're flying their spaceship away. to the nearest planet with a bar and a strip club. And rolled credits, you know? Then we have a post-credits scene. Because we go back to the very first few minutes of the pilot episode. You remember? There was that mysterious strike of lightning that brought his ship back to life. That wasn't just bad writing. No. That was, in fact, Kevin, the intern, who was able to time travel back and strike the disrespectful loon with lightning, sparking Henry's rise to greatness. And then we get, Kevin, the intern, being like, yes, Henry, yes, I did the lightning, just like you asked me to. Fine. And then he flies off. And that's the end of the show, is Kevin still being his intern.
It's a little tease.
Yeah, and being unhappy.
Yeah.
But that's my show. That's Captain Weird and the Journey into Oblivion. That's it. That's all I got.
I loved it. It was great. I love more Captain Weird. That was a intricate plot line you had set up. That was a lot of work.
There was a lot going on. I feel like
you probably should have used that for our comeback episode. But,
I wanted to do something simple for our comeback episode.
Yeah. Let them down. Let the viewers down. That's what I say. So they don't have any high expectations.
Of course not. But yeah.
We don't want them thinking we'll come back bigger and better than ever. We're coming back exactly the same as before, with occasional,
if not a little worse,
good things.
Occasional. Yeah. I like Scumsucker, but it's definitely not as intricate as Captain Weird. There weren't as many players. But I think these were a good A and B side to our science fiction double feature.
I think you were the A and I was the B.
No, it was great. I liked yours better than mine, if I'm being 100% honest with you.
No, I don't know about that. All right. But we're getting pretty long here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles Long. With me, as always, has been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to imagine and enjoy. Have a good night, folks.
Goodbye.